Hello wrestling fans! In this video we're going to be ranking every single model of Edge in WWE games. Each model of Edge will be ranked into one of 5 tiers, those tiers being Edge-O-Matic, which is the best of the best, Good, Indifferent, Bad, and Edgecution, which basically means they murdered this model of Edge. Before we get started, something to note is we will be ranking how good the model is in relation to the game it was featured in. So obviously a model from the N64 is going to vary a lot from the 2K models, but was it good given the aesthetics they were going for? So let's go way back and start with WWF Attitude. Now although this game was terrible, he actually looks pretty good here. The face scan is good for Edge and the attire is spot on. I also think the skin tone is pretty accurate. There's a great shot of it here. So this first model of Edge, I'm going to rank him as good. Our next model of Edge is from WWF Wrestlemania 2000, one of the best WWE games on the N64, but this model of Edge is not very accurate at all, particularly when it comes to the face. He has this rather annoying grin and the hair doesn't quite look right, being off colour, being a bright yellow, and there are some good bits like the attire, but there's also some bad bits, so I'm going to go with Indifferent for this model of Edge. Okay, on to WWF Smackdown, and well, this is Chris Jericho. I mean, it looks more like Jericho or Test, the skin tone's all wrong, the facial expressions are actually quite interesting, although they don't help enhance the model at all, and it's just not very good. It looks nothing like Edge, I'll be honest. So this is our first Edge that is going into Edgecution. Okay, so on to WWF Royal Rumble, a game that I never actually played but am pleasantly surprised by the model. The hair looks really good on Edge, the different colours work well, the attire is great, and the face actually has a very good resemblance to Edge, which is always important. So I think the attention to detail here is very good, and that's why I'm going to rank him as good. Up next, we have WWF No Mercy, and I'm going to be controversial here because I do think this is a step backwards from what we saw in WrestleMania 2000. I went with Indifferent for WrestleMania 2000 for the model of Edge, but here I'm going to say bad because if we look at the profile picture of Edge and compare it to the model, it just doesn't look like him. The hair is still an issue. In fact, I think it's worse this time round and it's bright yellow instead of blonde. It should be highlighted. It's not as good as WrestleMania 2000, so I'm going to go with bad. Okay, WWF Smackdown 2, Chris Jericho is back. Need I say much more? Yeah. Where did they get this face scan from? I don't know, but there's no improvements from the first Smackdown game, and so I'm going to dump this one in Edgecution. On to WWF Smackdown Just Bring It, and the third Smackdown game and the previous two haven't fared very well, but this one has made a dramatic improvement. This is much better, in fact a massive step up for this model of Edge. It looks like Edge. So it seems that THQ put some major effort in here for PS2, and I think the face is very accurate, and so I'm going to go with good. Smackdown gets a good at last. Now on to WWF Raw. So we just got a good for Smackdown. Can Raw do the same? Well, no it can't, because the face has gone backwards. It doesn't really look like Edge once again. It looks a bit more like Christian, and it just isn't very good. The hair looks okay, I'd say, but the face lets it down once again. So unfortunately, Raw is going to get a bad. So we got the F out, and now we're on to the E's with WWE Wrestlemania 18, and this model of Edge looks more like Dr. Disrespect or even Kevin Nash than Edge.
If you, Kevin Nash, don't live up to expectations, you could be joining the unemployment line with your buddy Scott Hall.
Whoa!
Wow. I just don't like it. The hair looks all wrong. At times, if you look at him from a side angle, he looks okay. The attire's alright, but again, we go back to the face being the most important part, and it just doesn't look good. The skin tone as well is too pasty. I just don't like this model. It seems off. So I'm going to go, unfortunately for this one, as bad. I don't think it deserves execution, but I'm going to put it in bad anyway. Back to SmackDown with SmackDown Shut Your Mouth, and the last SmackDown we gave a good, and this one's going to get the same because it is a good model. There's a few advancements that have been made, more attention to detail this time round. The face isn't perfect, but it is good, and that's why it is going in good in the tier. On to WWE WrestleMania 19, and it's pretty good, I must say. The hair's a bit scraggy, but I actually like the highlights that they've managed to get in here, unlike previous games, for example on the N64 where they did a terrible job. But I'm quite surprised by this model, so yeah, good. Okay, WWE Raw 2, the last one we gave a bad. Any improvements? Yes, I would say so. Doesn't quite look perfect, but doesn't look bad either. So his body proportion is a little bit off. He looks a bit lanky, but he does look okay. His face looks good. So I'm gonna balance it out here and just say indifferent. Up next, we have WWE Smackdown Here Comes the Pain, and virtually no improvements from SmackDown Shut Your Mouth, so it just remains good. On to WWE Day of Reckoning, and I will say this one had me going back and forth because I do really like this model, but there are aspects that let it down. For example, the face looks good, the skin tone's good, the hair's great, and the model itself looks alright, but the moustache. The beard's okay, but the moustache just throws me off. It's too bold, it's too out there. And then the actual body itself of Edge, it seems too compact, and that just lets it down. So unfortunately, for all the good that's in there, I'm going to have to put it as indifferent. Okay, on to the SmackDown vs Raw series, the first installment for this ranked list, and it's very good. It could almost be Edge-O-Matic, but I'm going to keep it as good. The face is good, the body is good, it's just good. Up next, we have WWE WrestleMania 21. Yeah. The hair's not very good, and I actually feel like it's a step backwards from the previous game that we just covered. I will say though, it's not awful and it's not bad, so indifferent. WWE Day of Reckoning 2. The first one didn't fare very well, but this one is a pleasant surprise. I really like this model, and I think it's the best hair we've seen for a version of Edge. It's really good, and considering some of the issues that we had in the Day of Reckoning first version, I mean, they have fixed them all here. I really like this, and I'm going to say that because of the hair and the face, it's very accurate. I'm going to put this in Edge-O-Matic. So now we move on to the SmackDown vs Raw campaign fully as we go through 2006 onwards. And again, for SmackDown 2006, we have another really good model of Edge. I think it delivers, I think it does well, and it definitely does exactly the same as what Day of Reckoning did, Day of Reckoning 2 that is. And I think that this was a good foundation to build upon for the SmackDown vs Raw series. So it's only when they changed the series to WWE 12, I think again we go back and start questioning the look of the models, but this one's good. In fact, this one is better than good. This one, twice in a row now, 2 Edge-O-Matics. Alright, can SmackDown vs Raw 2007 keep with the trend of the past two? No, not really. I like this model, personally, but it doesn't actually look very much like Edge, and when you consider SmackDown 2006, how accurate that looked from the face to the body, the texture, this one's taken a bit of a turn down, I wouldn't say a cartoon look, but a lot more that they have tried to maybe enhance the way that the model looks, and in doing so they've made it look less like Edge. It's not bad, but it doesn't look that much like Edge either, so I'm going to be a little bit biased because I still like this model. Some people might think, look, it doesn't look like Edge, so it should be bad, but I'm going to go with indifferent for this one. SmackDown vs Raw 2008, and I still feel like they're going through some sort of period here, which I don't understand because 2006 did really well, but they don't really know what they're doing with the design, and now it looks like his hair's been stuck on his head. Again, it looks okay, but it doesn't look great, it doesn't look good, it doesn't look bad. So once again, 2008, indifferent. On to Smackdown vs Raw 2009, and over the past two installments it didn't feel like THQ knew what they were going for, and they were a bit in between things, but here I feel they've got it right. It was a new look for Edge at the time, and now I think they've got it right in game. I like the hair, I think the hair is really good. I think the face is spot on considering the previous two didn't quite work, and they've managed to find that balance which they had in 06, but also get this style that they've been going for. So I really like this. I think they delivered at last, and I would say that this for THQ is another Edge-o-matic. Smackdown vs Raw 2010, and you'd think that considering the last one they'll be getting another Edge-o-matic, but we're wrong, because something, and I can't quite put my finger on it, isn't right about this model of Edge. It still looks like Edge, the hair is still good, but something is off, and with it being off I'm just going to put this as good. Okay, Smackdown vs Raw 2011, and there is a change. Something happened here. THQ decided to mix things up a bit, and it's okay, but from a side look, Edge looks really good, the face looks alright, but then face on, starting to develop a little bit of an issue in the eyes, a little bit bug-eyed, a bit in your face, a bit intense. And this is something that began to grow throughout the franchise after this game, but I don't know, it's a very drastic step from 2010, 9 and 8 to get to this, and I'm not sure I really fully like it. It's alright, so I'm just going to go with indifferent. So speaking of drastic changes, on to WWE All-Stars, a very different look for a WWE game. Of course, this is intended to be larger than life, but the one issue here with this model is it doesn't look like Edge in the face at all. Yes, of course, the looks and the characteristics of this model are supposed to be over the top, but it still kind of needs to look like Edge. In fact, it just looks like Edge with a ton of Botox, making him not look like Edge. What I'd say about this model is if you strip everything away, say the attire, the hair, and just have the face on its own, would you recognise it being Edge? I don't think so. And because of that, I'm going to put this in Edgecution. Let's move on to WWE 12 and a full shift away from the Smackdown vs Raw franchise, although you can see aspects of the 2011 model in the WWE 12 version, but unfortunately it doesn't look any better. In fact, it kind of looks worse. Edge has his eyes all bugged out, his mouth is stretched, and he kind of looks a bit skeletal.
I'm not dead, I'm me.
So with all these things together, I'm going to put this one in bad. Can WWE 13 do any better? Not really. Still the same issues as WWE 12, the eyes are bugged out, the mouth is stretched, the same problems, you catch my drift. So this one is going to follow suit and go in bad. Okay, WWE 2K14, and this is under the 2K banner, but it's still pretty much THQ, and you can see the similarities from the previous two games, but I will say that THQ have made some improvements. The eyes are less bugged out, the hair still isn't quite right, but it does this time suit the models, which is a good thing, and there were multiple models of Edge in this game because of course we had the 30 years of WrestleMania mode, and some models are better than others, and overall I'm going to put this one in good because THQ have made some improvements. Alright, WWE 2K15 and 2K and Visual Concepts' first major kick at a WWE game. Of course THQ went out of business, Yux joined up with 2K, and this is what we got. So would 2K keep the trend of what we saw in the last few games with this move also to next gen consoles, or would they come with something different? Well, they came with this, and this wasn't very good because this kickstarted the trend of having a version of Edge that didn't look like Edge in a WWE game for many years. 2K16, 2K17, 2K18, this monstrosity in 2K19 and 2K20. In 19, they didn't even give him an entrance attire, but in general it just isn't Edge. The way he walks, the way he moves, and the way he looks. His eyes, the intensity is back more than ever before. The skin tone isn't right, he looks like rubber. It's just wrong. Nothing about this is good, and the hair is goddamn awful as well. So over 6 installments of the game up to 2K20, we had this model, and it quite literally is the one. So that's why all of these are going in execution. On to WWE 2K Battlegrounds, and I was pretty harsh on WWE All-Stars and their attempt at making a larger than life WWE game. It wasn't that the game was bad or anything like that, but I just think the models didn't look like the superstars, albeit they were going for that bigger look. Now with this game, I'm going to say something that many will probably disagree with, but I think they got it right, because they were going for this caricature of a superstar, but it still looks like the superstar in some aspects. So for example with Edge, I think that face looks like Edge, and the model is adjusted to be like a caricature. So they've got it on point here. I know many don't like this game, but I do think the look of it was pretty good. So I'm going to put this one in good. Our final model of Edge to be ranked is from WWE 2K22. Of course we only have 2 screenshots to go by with the game coming out next year, but they show plenty of promise. In fact, it's a remarkable step forward from the past 6 games. We have a current version of Edge, at last! The standout piece for this new model of Edge is of course the new face scan, which is long overdue, and it looks really good. It looks far more accurate than anything we've had from 2K and Visual Concepts in the past. The hair as well looks really good, although we don't know how the hair physics will play out. There are a few things that aren't quite right with this model, but they are only minor. For example, I said I like the hair, but it does need adjusting in terms of the colour. It's a bit yellow. Maybe that could be toned down ahead of the March 2022 release, and the attire is good, but it's not quite perfect, with a few little aspects missing. If we look at the second screenshot, when Edge is showing some facial expression, I'd say it looks a tiny bit off, but that could just be the screenshot. But overall, this is a huge improvement on the past 6 games, and this is definitely good, with a tentative that it could move up to Edge-O-Matic once we see a bit more. So that was every model of Edge in a WWE game ranked. Were we a bit harsh with only having 3 reach Edge-O-Matic and quite a few going down to Execution? Maybe. I'll let you be the judge of that. And if you enjoyed this video, please do drop a like on it, and why not leave us a comment of how you would rank these models in a WWE game, and who would you like to see us rank next? Make sure you leave us a comment, why not drop a like on this video. Until the next one, thanks for watching.